Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of the new podcast Locked in Liberty, the show where we deep dive into the rights, culture, and controversies surrounding the government in America. I'm Will.
And I'm Hudson. Today we're tackling one of the most powerful and controversial parts of the Constitution, the First Amendment.
Freedom of speech, religion, the press, assembly, and petition all in one sentence, and yet it shapes nearly everything about American democracy.
We're breaking it all down. Its history, how it works today, what you can and can't say, and whether the First Amendment and the freedom of speech should be more regulated or less in our modern digital world.
Segment 1. What is the First Amendment?
Let's start with the actual language. Here's the First Amendment as the Founding Fathers wrote it. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances.
That's 5 core freedoms, packed into one amendment. And even though it starts with Congress, courts have ruled it applies to all levels of government thanks to the 14th Amendment.
These aren't just abstract rights, they're daily realities. From social media posts to school protests to press freedom, the First Amendment touches everything and is a key part of the freedoms given to us American citizens.
Segment 2. Why was it created?
To get why it was created, we need to go back to the late 1700s. After the Revolutionary War, Americans were deeply afraid of centralized power, especially after what they experienced under British rule.
Things like censorship, punishment for dissent, and forced religious conformity were still fresh in everyone's mind. That fear led to the Bill of Rights, including the First Amendment, which was ratified in 1791.
The right to petition? That was key. It came directly from experiences like the Olive Branch Petition in an attempt to settle a conflict with the British government. It was sent to King George III in 1775, and he rejected it. So the founders wanted to guarantee a way for citizens to peacefully demand change.
That's the spirit of the First Amendment, to protect dissent even when it's uncomfortable.
Segment 3. Free speech. What are the limits?
Okay, so let's clear something up. You don't have the right to say anything you want anywhere, anytime.
Right. The Supreme Court has carved out specific categories of unprotected speech. The first category is incitement to violence. If your words are likely to cause immediate lawless action. This involves the landmark case Brandenburg v. Ohio. In that case, Clarence Brandenburg was convicted under an Ohio law for giving a speech at a rally that allegedly advocated violence. The court reversed his conviction, holding that the government can only punish speech that incites imminent lawless action and is likely to produce such action.
Another example are fighting words, which is speech that could provoke someone to violence. The Supreme Court case that regards fighting words is Chaplinsky v. New Hampshire from 1942. That's where the fighting words doctrine comes in. Words that are so inflammatory, they provoke violence.
Another category is perjury. This is lying under oath in the court of law.
Yet another category is defamation, which are lies that damage someone's reputation. Defamation would be if a newspaper falsely reports that a chef serves expired food, for example, or if someone falsely acclaims another person has committed a crime. People can sue each other if they feel that they've been defamed.
Another category is obscenity. This is sexual content with no serious value.
And one last example is solicitation of a crime, which is telling someone to commit a crime. That's a whole other complicated branch of free speech that deserves its own episode.
Segment 4. Speech in real life.
Now let's talk about how free speech works in real life. Schools, jobs, and your social media accounts. It's complicated.
Let's start with the students. In Tinker v. Des Moines in 1969, the Supreme Court said students don't shed their constitutional rights at the schoolhouse gate. Students chose to wear black armbands to protest the Vietnam War. The school did not like this and told them that they couldn't, and it went to court. The Supreme Court eventually said that the armbands were an example of protected speech.
But fast forward to Mahanoy v. BL in 2021, a cheerleader was kicked off the team for swearing about school on Snapchat from off campus. The court ruled in favor of her. Why? Because the school had no authority off campus and there was no disruption.
But then there's Doninger v. Niehoff. A student posted a blog insulting school officials. The school punished her and the court sided with the school because that post caused disruption.
Now at work, it's different. Public employees have some First Amendment protections, but if you work for a private company, they can fire you for what you say online, unless a law states otherwise.
And when it comes to protests, yes, you can protest in public spaces, but the government can regulate the time, place, and manner of that protest. You might need a permit, and you can't block traffic or incite violence.
Segment 5. Religion, establishment versus free exercise.
Let's shift to religion. The First Amendment protects it in two distinct ways. The Establishment Clause. Government can't favor or endorse a religion. And two, the Free Exercise Clause. You have the right to practice your religion freely.
In Engel v. Vitale in 1962, the court struck down school-sponsored prayer. Even if it's non-denominational, it's still government-endorsed religion because schools are sponsored by the government. So if the school is leading prayers, then essentially the government is leading students in prayer, which goes against the Constitution.
On the flip side, Wisconsin v. Yoder in 1972 ruled in favor of the Amish families who pulled their kids out of school early for religious freedoms. That's free exercise at work.
Segment 6. Assembly and petition.
Let's not forget the lesser-known freedoms, the right to assemble and petition the government.
In Edwards v. South Carolina in 1963, students were arrested for protesting civil rights on State House grounds. The court ruled that peaceful protest is protected, even if it makes the government uncomfortable.
Petitioning the government means more than writing letters. It includes lawsuits, campaigns, and even organized protests. It's how change happens in democracy.
Segment 7. Speech in the digital age.
Now, here's where it gets messy. The First Amendment protects against government censorship, but not censorship from private companies like Facebook or Twitter.
But when those platforms dominate public conversation, does it feel like censorship? Some think social media should be treated like a public utility.
And with AI-generated content, deepfakes, and algorithms promoting disinformation, the question becomes, do we need new rules for a digital era?
Or do we just need to educate people better and reinforce the value of open speech, even if it's uncomfortable?
Segment 8. Non-citizens and the First Amendment.
Do non-citizens have free speech protections? Generally, yes, if they're physically present in the U.S.
But right now, there's a trial in Boston where foreign academics are being prosecuted over pro-Palestinian posts. That raises tough questions about the balance between immigration law and constitutional rights.
Segment 9. Should we regulate more or less?
So here's the big debate. Should the First Amendment be more regulated or less regulated?
Some say more regulation is needed to fight hate speech, misinformation, and violence, especially online.
While others say that opens the door to government overreach. Who gets to decide what's considered misinformation? What's offensive to one person might be the truth to another.
And some Supreme Court justices have even hinted at revisiting the New York Times v. Sullivan, which protests the press from being sued for honest mistakes. This could reshape journalism if changed.
Segment 10. Global perspective and the road ahead.
Other democracies like Canada, the United Kingdom, and Germany do restrict hate speech and misinformation more than we do.
But the U.S. has always believed that the answer to bad speech is more speech, not censorship.
Now, I know that may sound idealistic, but it's built into our legal DNA. Still, we have to figure out how the First Amendment works in a world of TikTok, AI-generated news, and political polarization.
Whether you're speaking, praying, protesting, or posting, these freedoms are foundational, but so is the responsibility that comes with them.
That's it for today's episode of Locked in Liberty. Make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with a friend who needs to hear it.
And the conversation doesn't end here. Think about how you use your First Amendment rights and what country we want to be.
We'll be back next time to explore the Second Amendment and the rights that it guarantees.
Until next time, stay informed, and thanks for listening to Locked in Liberty.